Well, hello everybody and welcome to Chicago O'Hare. It's an insanely windy day out today, and so unfortunately my new Panasonic camera absolutely choked, and almost all you can hear in these video clips is just wind. And so for that reason, we are narrating this video today, and starting right off is this ANA Cargo 777 freighter coming in from Tokyo Narita. And fun fact, O'Hare is one of just two destinations for ANA Cargo alongside LAX, and that does make sense given ANA Cargo only has two planes. And as you can sort of tell, the video clips overall came out pretty good. I got this camera back in December, but it's my first time using it for a proper spotting session. It was just the wind, man. It was crazy and it ruined the audio, but we'll have next time, I'm sure. And next up, we have United 757-300 coming in from Los Angeles. Always fun seeing these aircraft given there's not many 753s out there, and overall it's a pretty unique aircraft. United flies these mainly between major hubs or leisure destinations, so aside from LAX, they also usually fly these from Chicago to Denver, San Francisco, and Orlando, as of right now. And you can kind of guess why. I mean, this plane's got over 230 seats, so it's perfect to use it on those busy hub routes, along with flights to Florida and Hawaii as well. And following the 757 is another cargo 777, this time from China Cargo, which is in part owned by China Eastern Airlines, hence the similar all-white liveries. This aircraft's coming in originally from Shanghai, but of course with a stopover in Anchorage. We actually used to get China Eastern Airlines 777-300ERs pre-pandemic with passenger service to Shanghai. They have not come back, and neither have Hainan Airlines, who used to fly from Beijing. I remember when we used to get the 747s from China Cargo. Sadly, those have long been retired, and now China Cargo has an all 777 fleet with 14 aircraft. And this is, I think, one of 3 cargo airlines we get in Chicago with China in the name. Random fun fact, because we get China Cargo, we get China Southern Cargo, and then we also have China Airlines Cargo, who are from Taiwan. And coming in next for runway 10 center is one I was pretty excited to see. It's my first proper catch of ITA Airways, who are the reincarnation of Alitalia. In fact, all of ITA's A330-200s, those are former Alitalia aircraft. And this is the 3rd flight since ITA resumed service to Chicago for this summer season. And just like Alitalia once did, ITA only serves Chicago during the summer, and that of course coincides with the huge surge in American travelers who go over to Italy for summer vacation. Okay, so now we're catching a departure off runway 10 left, and it's Korean Air 38 Heavy back to Seoul Incheon. Sadly, not the new livery, but I was actually just back at O'Hare recently, and I got to see the new livery 777, so you will see that in a future video coming out very soon. And here's a brief pause to acknowledge this United 767, which landed on runway 9 center, and quickly shifting our attention to further up the runway where Japan Airlines Flight 9 back to Haneda is rolling for departure. Kind of interesting how they didn't go full length, but I guess they didn't need to use all 13,000 feet. Now, pre-pandemic, Japan Airlines used to fly from Tokyo Narita to Chicago, and then after the pandemic, they shifted that route to Haneda. But as of June 1st, they have added service to Narita Airport once again with the 777. So just like their competitor ANA, Japan Airlines is also now serving both Tokyo airports from Chicago. Okay, now back to the Korean Air 777 blasting off, and what a shame you can't hear the GE90s thanks to the wind, but these things happen, of course. Now, Korean Air is a SkyTeam member, and I just realized ITA Airways is leaving SkyTeam this year to join Star Alliance next year as part of its integration into Lufthansa Group. And as usual with the Korean Air flight, this 777 is definitely fully loaded because it's using every bit of runway 10 left that it can get, still getting up with enough runway to spare for the voyage back home to Incheon. So if you recall earlier, I was talking about travel demand to Italy in the summer, and here is another flight from there, United 971 from Rome, operated by 787-10. Now this flight operates year-round, and it's actually the only nonstop route from Chicago to Italy that operates the entire year, as ITA and American fly there seasonally. And check out that lopsided but quite a smooth touchdown for that Dreamliner, and it's pretty cool to have this shot with the old livery 787-10 in the background. And now behold Chicago's only remaining passenger 747 service, none other than Lufthansa 430 Heavy from Frankfurt. And this flight was previously on the A340-600, but the 747 came back at the end of March. We still do get the A340s on the evening Frankfurt flight 432. It seems to switch between the 340-300 and the 600. But the 747, man, that is a plane you never get tired of seeing, especially the Lufthansa ones. It's a good time to mention that the KLM and British Airways 747-400s, man, those are some planes that I miss seeing the most here at O'Hare. Now, this right here is an interesting case. Because of Pakistan's airspace closure to all Indian aircraft, Air India's flights to North America have been forced to stop over in European cities for refueling, which of course has added additional time to their journeys. So normally flight 127 here, that would arrive in Chicago around 6:30 to 7 a.m. non-stop from Delhi, but because of the airspace closure, these flights are having to deviate significantly to avoid Pakistan, and with that they can't reach North America non-stop. So the Chicago flights, they're now stopping over to refuel in Vienna both ways, which is of course a massive inconvenience to those who choose Air India specifically for its non-stop link between Chicago and India. But for spotters at least, we get to catch this flight later in the day. And I will mention, as someone of Pakistani heritage, I love seeing Air India here in Chicago. And next up is an all-white 747 from Khalida Air coming in from Anchorage, but its journey originally started in Seoul, South Korea. This 747 originally flew passengers for Malaysia Airlines before being retired and converted to cargo service around 2008. And if you look closely, you can actually still see the plugged up windows from back when this aircraft flew passengers. Some slight wind shear there and a solid smackdown for that 747. And coming in right behind is United Flight 12 from Zurich, operated by a 767-300ER. We are now up to 3 daily flights to Zurich in the summer, 2 of which are of course operated by Swiss. And this is actually a relatively recent addition for United because they only started this route back in 2022, but it does go well with United's transatlantic joint venture with the Lufthansa group. And of course, we now get to see 767s flying from more than just London Heathrow. Okay, so this Spirit A321 was originally on approach to runway 10 right, which is normally used by regional jets and narrow-body aircraft, but because of another aircraft still on that runway, this aircraft is going around. They did eventually come back in and landed safely a few minutes later. Okay, now it's funny how for seemingly the longest time United didn't repaint any of their 787-8s, but all of a sudden this year they've been getting them repainted pretty quickly. So this is my first time seeing one of the new livery 787-8s. As expected, it looks great in the new livery, and of course we're going to have plenty of opportunities to see these aircraft and also catch the remaining old livery ones, as of course many of United's international routes are on the 787-8s, not only in the summer but also throughout the year. Now, there once was a time when most of United's long-haul flights from Chicago were on 777-200ERs. Those have now all been replaced by 787-8s and 787-10s. So these days, and actually for quite a while now, the only United 777s that we get in Chicago regularly are these domestic 777-200s that fly on the busy hub routes like Denver, San Francisco, and LA. But also this past winter, we saw them flying to Orlando and Fort Lauderdale. And with 364 seats, these planes have the most seats of any aircraft in United's fleet. I always enjoy seeing these because, first of all, it's a 777, and as usual for a 777, very nice touchdown there despite all the wind. And finally, we've got an appearance from an American Dreamliner, this one coming in from Barcelona, which is one of the many seasonal routes that American flies from Chicago in the summer. And speaking of Barcelona, or Spain, I should say, American just added a new route to Madrid this back in April, also on the Dash 8, along with Naples, Italy. And it seems like they haven't resumed Milan, Italy this summer, but they are still flying to Athens, Paris, Rome, Dublin, and of course, London Heathrow. Now here's another aircraft I was pretty excited to catch, finally getting some good shots of Austrian's new 787-9. And fun fact, this particular aircraft is the only one of their two 787s in the full livery, because the other one as of right now is all white. Austrian sort of alternates what they fly to the US. They currently fly the 787s to Chicago and JFK, but in a few months they're going to switch them over to Washington Dulles and Newark, and that means Chicago will go back to 777s and JFK to 767s, and they've been doing this sort of alternation for the past couple of months. So I was talking with one of my friends about whether BA is going to bring the A380 back to Chicago. Unfortunately, not anytime soon, especially now that British Airways has, first of all, 3 daily flights to Chicago, and also because Terminal 3, which is where BA departs from now, don't have any gates at Terminal 3 that can accommodate the A380. So currently BA is operating 787-10s like this, and also 777-200ER and 300ER, and with their 3 daily flights, Chicago to London overall as a route sees 9 daily flights in the summer season. Okay, next up is this United 767 not arriving from London or Zurich or even on a revenue flight. No, this aircraft was in maintenance here in Chicago for the past month, and this is its first flight after completing maintenance checks. So this aircraft did a 40-minute flight around northern and north central Illinois before coming right back to O'Hare. It eventually flew to Newark later that night, and it would resume revenue service the following day. I believe its first flight with passengers back from maintenance was Newark to London Heathrow. Okay, of course you can't ever get bored of all the heavy aircraft, but I had to include some generic action in here, and it's an interesting one. American 737 MAX 8 out of Orange County, California, and for some reason all of American's flights from Chicago to Orange County, they are on 737 MAXs, which I found pretty interesting. Right behind it is a standard 737-800 coming in from Philadelphia, American's 5th largest hub. American has continued to express its commitment to Chicago as a hub. Recently, they've been announcing a lot of new domestic and short-haul international routes coming soon or starting this summer. And I'm really happy to see that, given overall American's hub operation in Chicago has been pretty scaled back in recent history. But again, it's encouraging to see them starting new routes out of Chicago as of this year. Okay, so this shot started off so bad because the wind got even worse, believe it or not, but here is another one of United's new livery 787-8s. This one coming in from Munich, which was previously a route operated by 787-10 until a couple of months ago. And Chicago-Munich sees 3 daily flights in the summer, with the other 2 being on Lufthansa A350s. So yeah, the wind got a lot worse, and as you can see, that was by far the hardest landing that I filmed that day. So similar to United and their repainting habits, it seems that Aer Lingus somehow woke up one day and decided that, okay, now we're also going to go on a repainting spree. So a bunch of their A330-300s that not too long ago was wearing the green livery, like this one here, they've been freshly repainted. Now Dublin is served 4 times a day from Chicago in the summer season, with 1 flight each from United and American and the other 2 from Aer Lingus. And the A330 is one of my favorite aircraft to catch landing because of how it touches down. As you can see, the first rear 2 wheels on the main bogies touch down first, and then the other 2 come down slowly after. And here's yet another aircraft I was really looking forward to seeing. Despite Cathay Pacific resuming service to Chicago over a year ago, this is my first time getting some decent video of it. They are now back to daily service from Hong Kong on the A350-1000, one of 2 airlines that fly this aircraft to Chicago, the other being Etihad, which we will see later. And overall, this was one of my favorite shots from this day. I guess the way I didn't zoom in as much kept this shot a whole lot more stable. Cathay Pacific also just recently launched flights to Dallas with the A350-1000, which I was happy to see, given DFW was lacking a non-stop flight to Hong Kong for a very long time since American suspended their route in 2020. And here comes yet another United Dreamliner, but this time wearing the old livery. I can't believe I'm saying this, but catch these while you can, because United has been ramping up the repainting process. I haven't checked how many 788s still have the old livery, but regardless, this paint scheme will be a thing of the past at some point soon. And what a beautiful touchdown that was for this Dreamliner coming back home from Amsterdam. And next up is a special visit from United's Star Alliance 767, bringing it back home from London. Of course, this is a regular visitor to Chicago, but it was nice to see it again for me after about a year or so. And the United 767s, these are actual dinosaurs. This aircraft is 32 years old, but I'm sure they've still got a couple more years left in them, at least until more planes from United's massive 787 order start coming in over the coming years. And how is that for a 767 touchdown? Absolutely fantastic. Okay, and here's a shot of Cathay Pacific taxiing to the gate. It's really interesting how ATC organizes all the traffic. At least for the heavies going to Terminal 5, they taxi all the way back here if they land on runway 10 center, before turning and crossing 10 left, and then turning right to go back towards T5. And a perfect transition over to Chicago's other A350-1000 operator, none other than Etihad Airways, with this being Flight 10 back to Abu Dhabi. Just like Cathay Pacific, Etihad also flew 777-300ERs to Chicago previously before replacing them with 787s and later A350s. And Etihad's 777, that is another plane that I miss seeing a lot here in Chicago. They have brought the 777 back to O'Hare on various occasions this year, but with more A350s being delivered, those random 777 visits will sadly become much more rare. But either way, the Etihad A350 is a true stunner, and overall it's really encouraging to see Etihad back on the rise, of course with the new terminal being opened in Abu Dhabi last year, and Etihad getting a bunch of new planes. They are once again expanding to new cities as well, which is great news for them because if you recall not too long ago, at one point, Etihad was suffering massive losses year after year. So after a insane restructuring process, they are back on the rise, and I'm really happy to see that. Okay, so at this point I thought I was done spotting, so here's a nice little shot of the Etihad A350 climbing away with O'Hare in the foreground. But then I was like, we got some more heavies coming in, so I'll stay for a little bit longer. And okay, right here we've got Iberia. So Iberia recently changed their flight numbers into Chicago. Before their flight numbers were 6274 and 6275. Now they've changed their flight numbers to 341 and 342. The A330s, though, they are still the same, however, and I keep talking about planes I miss seeing in Chicago, and Iberia's A340-600, that is another aircraft that I wish I took more advantage of spotting here in Chicago because they were, of course, another victim of the pandemic. And last but not least, ending on the best airplane ever, the 777-300ER. This is one of 2 daily ANA flights to Chicago. This one in the afternoon arrives from Narita, and then the aircraft later departs to Haneda after about 3 hours. And that's how they do it here. The morning ANA flight comes in from Haneda and departs to Narita, and then like I said, it's vice versa for this afternoon flight. And that aircraft, once that touches down, that is it for this video. Again, I apologize for the voiceover this time, but I hope it was something different. I really didn't want these video clips to go to waste just because of the wind, so had to improvise, and I hope you enjoyed it for this one time. Until next time though, take care everybody, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.